Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me and see me. It's fantastic to have you all here and to have such a fantastic group of teachers from all around the globe. I want this webinar to be as interactive as possible, so I hope you'll join in. And to start with, before I give you an outline of the webinar, I'd like you to help me with this question. Imagine it's your first lesson with a group of complete beginners learning English. What jobs would you teach them? You can have a maximum of 7, but just start putting jobs into the chat. What jobs would you teach your beginners? Over to you. Teacher, yes. We're getting lots of teachers here. Firefighter. Aha. Uh-huh. Mother, I love that one. Wow, there's a really good range here. I'm going to stop you there. Thank you very much for joining in, because I want to tell you a story. This happened to me over 30 years ago now, and I was in Hungary, starting work as teacher trainer in Hungary. And I was really excited about learning Hungarian. So I went to my first beginners class, and the teacher was lovely, and we did a bit of introduction. And then she taught us the following jobs: historian, poet, composer, novelist, carpenter, farmer, and philosopher. I was absolutely shocked. Why? Well, the jobs were completely irrelevant to every student in the class. And she didn't teach us my job, a teacher, or the other word I really wanted to know, which was a student. But in fact, the lesson stayed with me as a perfect example of lack of personalisation. She was a lovely woman, but she was teaching the jobs that she was interested in. Needless to say, I didn't stay in that class for very long. Let's have a look at what I hope that we can do together this afternoon. First of all, these questions. What is personalisation? What are the pros and cons of personalisation for adult learners? And how can we offer each unique individual a relevant and engaging learning experience in our classes? There'll be lots of practical ideas, both for personalisation in the lessons, where I will be referring to the new edition of Speakout, and stepping back, personalisation over a longer period of learning, maybe a year or 2 years, looking a little bit at the Pearson Connected English programme. So I'd like to start with a really fundamental question. What is personalisation? And I'd like you to put your answers in the chat room, but could you write it as if you are a learner? So here's an example. I have the opportunity to express my opinions. What else does personalisation mean to you? Talk about my life, engaging, interests, my own views. Yeah. Relevance coming out a lot. Yeah. Individual skills, yes. Interests again, goals. Beliefs, hopes. I like that, hopes. Yeah. Something I can feel identified with, yes. The teacher really pays attention to me, lovely. Yeah. Oh, how lovely. Pictures and presentation. Okay, stop there. That's absolutely fantastic. The ideas here, what strikes me is how you have a lot of things in common, but there are also some things that are quite individual to each of you. So I'm learning quite a lot already from looking at yours. Here's my answers to this question. So in the lessons, I have the opportunity to express my opinions, my feelings, my experience, my beliefs, and my knowledge. Number 2, I'm engaging with language, skills, and topics which are relevant to my interests. We had a lot of people talking about interests and goals, my overall goals in learning English. And number 3, which came up from some of your chat, I feel recognized and accepted, and I'm able to be myself in the class. So this is, if we can use this as the basis of the webinar, and thank you very much for your ideas. I'm going to ask you to do something else now, and I'm going to move into personalization with adult learners, looking at why personalize, the pros, and actually why not personalize sometimes. So be careful. So if your birthday is between January and June, could you look at why personalize and put in the chat why you think personalization is good with adult learners? If your birthday is between July and December, could you write, be careful about personalization with adult learners because? So I'll just give you a minute to do that. Why personalize, but be careful? October's just sent me one there. Yes, yes. Relevance, controversy, religion, yeah. Yes. Oh no, someone's birthday is right in the middle. There we go. Yes. Yeah. Some great ideas coming in here. Be careful not to get carried away. I'd like to ask you what that's about. Yeah. Meaningful topics, yes. Memorable, yes. Yes. Okay, thank you very much for that. Let's have a look at what I came up with. Okay, why personalize? You mentioned quite a lot of these. Let's talk about this. First of all, relevance to learners' real life needs. Now, the difference between adult learners and most younger learners is that adult learners have actually chosen to join the classes. They usually have fairly clearly defined goals, maybe to improve their job prospects or to get a visa for study or for traveling, you know, where English can be used as a tourist. And we can tap into this motivation to make and use personalization to make the lessons really as relevant as possible in terms of content. However, motivation within the lesson, the other thing about adult learners is that they often come to class in the evenings after a whole day at work. Or when I was in Hungary, I used to teach adult learners at 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. And at both times, I had a little bit of a problem in energizing the learners. So I think personalization can really energize and promote, motivate within the lesson. Memorable, several people mentioned this. Memorable. A new language can become more memorable if we personalize it. Let's give you an example. If you take a pencil and just write a sentence about yourself, I'd like you to think of a choice you made in the past and the results it had, beginning with if and using the past conditional. So if I think of one, maybe think of one, write one. It could be a regret. It could be something that worked out really well. Okay, here's my example. If I hadn't gone to Hungary, I wouldn't have met Steve. And Steve Oakes is my writing partner. So it was a very, very good thing that I went to Hungary. Now, in making that sentence, I actually had to give mental effort. And research shows that cognitive or emotional depth and mental effort or emotional effort makes language more memorable. So that struggle to use language to talk about yourself and your life makes it immediately more memorable. That's a very good reason for personalizing. And last but not least, group dynamics. The more you find out about people in the class, you're more likely to bond with those people. Let's have a look at the be careful side of things. And I think we can give the overarching warning of intrusion. First of all, my personality. Perhaps I'm somebody who's quite quiet and introverted and reflective. I don't necessarily want to be asked to talk about myself all the time. I might want to reflect, talk when I feel like it. Another learner might be very outgoing and very happy to talk about themselves. So I think we need to take into account the learner's personality, which is likely to be possibly more fixed as they get older. Feelings. Now, the one thing about adults is that they can often come to our classes with a feeling of quite a lot of anxiety. And this might come from their previous experience of learning a language or of being a learner in any sort of class. They may worry about being judged. If they're working with colleagues in a business environment, there may be issues of losing face in front of the other people. And of course, that day, they might have had a bad day at the office, you know, that everybody has a bad day when you really don't feel like getting involved. So I feel as a teacher, we need to be very alert to the emotional atmosphere in a classroom and sensitive to people's feelings that day or in general about learning English. Openness in different areas. I might be very happy to talk about my knowledge, but I don't want to talk about certain parts of my experience. I could be very happy to talk about my experience, but not about my fundamental, deeply held beliefs. And I think we need to be quite sensitive to which areas the learners are happy to talk about themselves in or their lives. I usually give my learners actually the option of just saying pass. And I say, you know, it's fine in class, just say pass if you don't feel happy talking about that. And many of you picked up on cultural appropriacy, sensitivity to what topics can be talked about in class. We're certainly very sensitive in that when we're writing a book. We have a whole list of things which don't go into the book. You know, they start with religion, alcohol, they go on politics and so on. Even at the level of, in the UK, you would never, ever ask anybody how much they earned. But I believe in some cultures that's okay. Now, I'm sure if you are a speaker from that country, you know what the cultural sensitivities are, but you might really need to help people who are coming in from abroad to teach in your school to help them see what not to talk about, what it's not appropriate. On the other hand, if you really, really know your students, you know, I know teachers who really do deal with quite sensitive topics, but that's only when they really know their learners. Okay, that's enough on the principles, but let's see where we are now with our list. And I'd like to think about this as authentic personalisation, introducing the idea of really paying attention authentically to the context and the learners in our class with adults. And what can we add to what we have before? First of all, or not. They have the right to remain silent. This next one, in a way that works best for me. So I can choose not to engage with certain topics, but I may have my own style, my own way of working with language skills topics. And finally, whatever I'm like, I want to feel recognized and accepted in the classroom. Fantastic. So that's the principles behind this webinar. Let's look at some practical ideas now. First of all, for personalization in our lessons. 4 areas I'm going to look at. Interaction, mainly between the teacher and the learners. New language, making practice personal. Personal response to skills work. And choice with adults in how they learn and what they're learning. So let's start with interaction. And I'm going to share with you my absolute favorite observation task as a teacher trainer. It's one of the first ones I learned about, and I think it's invaluable. And it's this. I'm sure some of you will recognize this. This is a classroom. There's the teacher and the students. And it's 10 minutes of a class. And I'm going to draw a line every time the teacher interacts, speaks to the students. What do you notice? Well, The student on the right-hand side is getting a lot of attention. And look, there are two students who haven't had nothing, absolutely nothing. I've watched classes of 60 minutes where, let's say, Matteo is sitting in the class and maybe he's weaker than everybody else or quieter than everybody else. Maybe not very good, but goodness, he's paid his money along with everybody, all the other students in the class, and he's not getting the attention from the teacher. It doesn't have to be that it's speaking. It can be as simple and as basic as sharing eye contact, looking at Matteo, smiling at Matteo, going and monitoring Matteo when he's in pairs, and when you know that he's got an answer right, asking him to say that in front of the class. But goodness, the fundamental thing about personalisation is that you need to feel valued in the classroom. But you might say, how about if I have a class of 40 students or more? How am I going to pay attention to every single one of those? Well, I talked to Steve, my writing partner, about this, and he told me about a yoga class where there were 40 students in the class. And he said, every lesson, the teacher came round and just adjusted the position or lightly touched every single student in that classroom. And he said, that was enough for me. That was enough for me to feel I was in the room with someone who cared and not just stumbling through exercises. Now, please, I'm not telling you to go and touch your students, no, but really trying to share out that attention so that you don't have what we have here, which looks like the teacher's pet on the right-hand side of the class. This is an observation task which is really worth getting a colleague in to do. You can do it just for 10 minutes of the class or for much longer. And of course, you can also use it to show interaction student to student. So that's my absolute favorite way of checking whether you are actually involving every student personally in your class. And here are three very short practical ideas for really building that interaction, that personal interaction between you and the learners in your class. The first one is from, thank you, Danny Norrington Davis told me about this one. And it's so simple. It's that every learner has a card, or they make their own card with a question mark on it. And when they're working alone or working in pairs or a group, if they want the teacher to come over, they just hold up the question mark. Now you think, well, couldn't they just put their hand up? But somehow having this question mark gives them more agency and power in the class. And it means that it alerts you as well to where there are areas and people who need a bit more of your help. They might want you to explain an activity, to correct them, or they might want some personal vocabulary. The second one, we're moving into correction here, which is a very personal thing in class. This is an activity I've used with almost all my classes. It's the traffic lights. So every learner has a red, green, or yellow post-it or pencils, something red, green, and yellow, and they put one of them on their desk in front of them for a particular activity. Red means, please correct everything. Green means, please don't correct anything. I'm feeling tired today. I don't want to be corrected. And yellow means just correct anything you think is really important. And many a time I've seen learners a lot of learners feel that correction is vital. They start off putting the red card out, and then they soon realize, whoa, this is a bit too much. And they go yellow normally. And while we're just talking about correction, so that is learners having autonomy to choose the level of correction they want, let's just have a think about correction when somebody's offered a personal contribution in the class. So I've got an example here. Say to a student, a learner, what was your weekend like? And they say to you, it was my grandmother's birthday. She has 95. We did a party for her. What not to do? Oh, not she has 95. She is, that's right, she is 95. And not we did a party. Can anybody else help? We had a party. How to kill a personal contribution, stone dead, in one awful kind of correction. I'm sure none of you would do this. If somebody offers something personal like that, Yeah, she had a party and she's 95. That's fantastic. Tell us about it. You can feed in the correction gently. She's 95. That's amazing. But you want to draw out the learners and not close them off by overcorrecting. But I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. I'm sure you don't do that. The third one, as a teacher trainer, I often teach new teachers that when there's some freer speaking practice, it's a really good idea to go around correcting and not correcting, collecting examples of errors and also examples of good language that the learners have used. And then at the end of the freer speaking, you can put them up on the board or you could use them next day for work. And you go through them with the class, correcting them or looking at good language. But sometimes I do this. I have my handy post-its again or pieces of paper, and I go around in group work and I write down a little individual piece of correction for each learner, and I make sure everybody gets one. So it's almost like a personal gift from me to them. This one, for example, it depends on the situation, the common mistake, it depends of the situation, or it depends the situation. I've done this quite a bit as an alternative to whole class feedback, and learners really like it. They just get this personal interaction, this personal correction from the learner. So those are three very simple little activities that we can do in class to improve the interaction, the personal interaction between the learner and the teacher. Let's go on to practice of new language. I've got another chat task for you. I want you to imagine you're learning a new piece of language, either a piece of very advanced English or a piece of language in another language that you're learning. Are you the sort of learner who prefers, first of all, to do some objective, keyable activity? Or are you the sort of learner that likes to immediately personalize it and put it into your life and how you might want to use it? If you're a person who likes it to be keyable first, can you put K in the chat? If you're the sort of person who likes to personalize it straight away, can you put P? Oh, we've got an A there. K's and P's, P's and K's, K. Oh, it's looking like half and half, really. K's, P. E, we've got an E. P. Lot of personalizing. Okay, let's have a look now at something from Speakout B2, just to give an example of what I mean. Okay, here we have vocabulary, reporting verbs, and the structure that comes after them. So, for example, she threatened to stop speaking to me if I didn't go with her. They asked us to go on holiday with them. He emphasized the most important points. And here is the personalized version of it. Now, very interestingly, a lot of you wanted to go straight for the personalized, mostly in course books. We tend to go for the keyable activity first, followed by the personalized freer one. But it is extremely interesting to me that a lot of you chose to go to the personalized one first. Let's see how we usually do it in Speakout. Here's A2, the elementary level. And here is a set of collocations. Very, very keyable, right and wrong collocations, verbs and nouns. What ideas do you have for personalizing this? How can you make this into a personalized activity? I'd like to put ideas in the chat. Make some sentences using them, yes. Have you ever? Can you? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Lots of really good ideas here. Find someone who, I hadn't thought of that, but of course the good old find someone who activity. Yes. Using them with professions. Yes. Find a photo. Mime them. I like that. I want to mime. That's a nice idea. Yeah. Gestures. Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm going to show you the three of my favorite ways to personalize, and you'll recognize these from Speakout. So these are the three that I like the best. First of all, turn them into questions. So in this particular example, we ask them in Speakout to add 2 more words in bold. So look after animals, look after children, look after my house while I'm away, fix a computer, fix a bike, fix a problem, etc., etc. But the practice is asking a question. And in the A2 book, we've used when was the last time you, because they've just been learning the past simple. So it's quite a nice way to recycle that as well. So making it into questions, and the very famous make these sentences true for you, or write some sentences. In this case, 2 are true, 1 is false about me. Get into pairs, guess which ones are true and which one is false. Well, for this one, the false one for me is I often fix people's computers, because actually I'd quite like to drive a lorry. Yes. And number 3, turn it into a discussion. So which sentences do you agree with? Contextualize the sentence and turn it into a discussion. And as a couple of people have said, how often do you do this? That's a nice one. Have you ever done this? Find someone who, how many people in the class, look at, etc., etc. But I think we're very lucky nowadays in that course books do make a better attempt at personalizing language than in the past. When I learned some languages when I was at school, there was never anything personal. We were always talking about people who were not ourselves. Good. Let's go on now. We've had a look at interaction and personal response. Oh, no, interaction and practice. Let's look at personal response to skills. Okay. Now, as a materials writer, we do have to look for topics which are going to interest as many people as possible and are not going to offend people. And of course, we can't always know what is going to be interesting to people, but we do our best. So, for example, in the new edition of Speakout, we think most people are now doing video conferencing, and they'll have plenty to say about it, the problems they have with it, the advice they give to people. Another one from the A2 plus level, life hacks. Everybody likes reading about these, and people have usually got some life hacks for this. This is a listening. It was really interesting researching this one, because I found out how to tell if a battery was live or dead. It involved whether it bounced or not. So very quickly, people can personalize that. But of course, we also have these very ELT type readings and listenings, which are not perhaps relevant to learners, but they are interesting per se. This one is from the higher level, and it's about a couple of hip hop people from Britain who pretended that they were American. Huge hoax. But I think probably the thing I'm most excited about, and is the most really motivating, is video. And I'm going to show you a video now, and it's a vlog. And this is where we ask people from all around the world, and you'll see where they are from, all around the world, questions, and they just took films on their mobiles. So before we watch this one, could you answer the question in the chat? What place in the world would you most like to visit? And could you say why, please? Where would you like to visit and why? Woo! Oh, what a fabulous variety we have here. Yeah. Someone wants to go to Norway because they like the cold weather. I love it. Family. Ah, someone wants to visit their grandmother's home country. Fantastic. Ah, oh. London, because it's London. Okay, stop there. I'm going to play the video now, and your task is, does anybody say the same as you? Now, I hope that everybody will be able to see this video. If not, if you have a problem with the internet, it's only a minute long, so just hold on. Here we go.
I would most like to visit probably Tokyo, because I love Japanese art, food, and culture.
I'd love to visit Costa Rica in South America because from the pictures I've seen, it looks beautiful, and I'd like to visit the wildlife.
I'd love to visit Argentina because you can enjoy the beach, the mountains, and most importantly, the penguins.
If I had one place to visit, I would like to visit the pyramids.
I really like traveling, and there are a lot of places that I would love to visit. But my dream destination is probably Australia.
I'd love to go to Chile because I'd love to walk up the Andes, do some mountain climbing, and see some different scenery to Britain.
I don't need to go anywhere. I already live in the place I would most like to visit, Sintra in Portugal. It's so beautiful. There's so many old buildings, castles. The views are wonderful, and there's many beautiful cafes, and it's only 5 kilometers from the sea.
So these vlogs are at the beginning of each unit, and they're people all over the world. And I think they're really authentic, they're short, they're motivating, they're personal, and they're really good for showing diversity, that there's just not just one way of giving your opinion. I think this really can motivate the learners. It's a fabulous jumping off point for personal response. And you can use it at the beginning of the unit, and you can just use it to spark their interest. It works with the first lesson of each unit, and we're really, really pleased with how they've come out. So, for example, A1, B1, A2 plus, that one, B1 again, and B2, getting a little bit more sophisticated there. Okay. We've talked then about interaction, about practice, about response, personal response, choice. I'm just going to go through this quite quickly because it's quite obvious in some ways. We can offer adult learners choice in a different way from younger learners. So different from a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old. We're dealing here with 25-year-olds, 35-year-olds, 85-year-olds. These are people with a lot of experience, a lot of life experience. To start off with, in class, I wouldn't ever force anybody to work in pairs if they didn't want to begin with. I know that I like a bit of time to think by myself. I hate it when I have to brainstorm with people without having time to actually cogitate myself first. So I think we can give some leeway and choice for learners as to how they want to interact in class, whilst, explaining how useful it can be to work with other learners. Ways of learning. How do they learn best? They might have a lot of experience. Do they like to write things down immediately? I know one person who liked to go and sit on a bench in the UK and just talk to people who were sitting there, particularly older people who'd really like to chat. I had another learner who got most of their English through watching YouTube and the subtitles on it. I know someone who became a really good Hungarian speaker by reading Agatha Christie books in Hungarian. And the best learner I ever met learned all his English. He was Chinese, and he learned all his English from a language lab. So there are many, many different ways of learning. With my Hungarian beginner classes, I decided to exchange lessons with a guy, and he recorded for me conversations at the market and in the ticket office, and conversations, just chatty conversations. And that's how I learned my basic Hungarian. So everybody has different ways of learning. We can expand their knowledge. We can show them different ways. They can share ways within the class, but I don't think we can force them to learn in any one way. In speaking activities, I am inclined with adult learners that if something is taking off, so maybe they have 6 things to discuss, but if one of them is really taking off very, very well, let them run with it. Let them go with it, and don't force them to go through all of the speaking, so that they have choice in the speaking activities. Yeah. I don't know how to express this one, but it's that moment in the classroom where you need to be alert to what lights up a learner. So they're going through them. Adult learners are very good. They'll do whatever you ask them to do. But every now and again, something lights them up. So, for example, I had one learner who started talking about salsa dancing, and she obviously loved it. So run with it, go with the flow, be mindful, be at the moment, and go with it, because that kind of energy and what it brings into the classroom really can carry the class. Another learner, a Japanese learner, she had us riveted because she taught us how to fold a t-shirt in 3 movements. Absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So if there's no time, then, ask them to go away, come back, share their passion with the class. You can really do this with adult learners. So again, this being alert to what lights them up. Yes, someone there is saying we can encourage learners to discover new ways of learning. Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's part of our job to do that, yes. The last one here is offer the learners opportunities to choose where they want to focus their learning. And I want to talk about this as we go on in the next section. I realize that I've got 2 people with question and answer, but I might have to leave that till the end because I'm not quite sure how to access your questions there. So apologies for not answering them immediately. Going on, we've had a look at interaction, new language, personal response, and choice. I now would like to go on to personalisation over a course. Whoops. So personalisation over a month, 6 months, a year, maybe 5 years. How can we step back and really help our learners? So with their personal goals, measuring progress, individual focus, and success. I'd like to talk about these 4. And in the chat, could you write, what are typical goals for your learners? Why are your learners in the classroom in general? Fluency, accuracy, studying, confidence, communication, yes. Careers, yeah. Careers, promotion. Exams, yes. Wow, yes, yes. And someone going to live in another country, yes, yes. Do their homework. This is adult learners, particularly. Yeah, academic issues, yes. Yeah. Thank you. We've got quite a lot in there about work. And I think nowadays, the goals are becoming higher stake. We've got a lot of people who really need English to improve their job prospects. Professionals who've got to deal with an international meeting, for example, on Zoom or Teams. We've got people who require English for their studies, either in their own country or abroad. Travel, tourism, absolutely, and living in the country. So communication, yes, but often for a very particular defined goal. And that's quite different from when I started, when, you know, people were learning English just for more fun. It wasn't so high stake in those days, I think. So let's take the case of Gina. And Gina is an Italian, and she's 20 years old. And she has a very clear personal goal. She wants to get a visa to come to the UK to do a pre-sessional course to go enable her to go on to university. So a pre-sessional university course. And over the last 6 months, Gina has been studying in an A2+ class. And she takes a benchmark test, and the computer gives her these results. We have a look at this. I'll take you through this diagram. On the left column, we have the Common European Framework bands from A1 to C2. To the right of that, we have the global scale of English numbers, which I'll go into in a minute. And here we have Gina's skills ratings. And underneath the skills ratings, we have her progress. So we can see that she's getting on nicely to go into a B1 class, that she's made huge improvements on her listening and even more on her speaking. Her writing's good anyway. Unfortunately, she seems to have gone down a little bit in her reading, but we do have a problem, or she has a problem, which is that her speaking is way below the level of her other skills. So she has an uneven profile, a jagged profile. How can we help Gina? She needs to get her speaking up. So let's just have a little look at the GSEs, for those of you that don't know it, the Global Scale of English. These are ways of helping learners to pinpoint their listening, reading, speaking, and writing skills on a numerical scale, right from 10 to 90. So it's breaking down the Common European Framework into much smaller units. And the advantage of this is that a learner can see exactly where they are at any one point, and they can move up the scale and see that they're moving up without getting stuck in a level. Because you see, for example, B1 is a huge level compared with, say, A1. And you can easily get stuck and feeling that you're making no progress there. But if you're using the GSEs, you do gradually go up, and you can see that as a marker of your progress. And then with the teacher, you can set goals, SMART goals, which are tailored to each skill. And that's very motivating and confidence building for learners. Okay, so here we are, Gina. Now, for the type of visa that Gina needs, she's got to get 43 in the GSE scale. We can see that she's getting there quite nicely in listening, reading, and writing, but she's nowhere near that in speaking. And in order for her to take the test to see whether she can get this visa, we need to take her above 43 so that she feels confident she can achieve 43. So she will go into a B1 class, but that speaking is an issue. So here we go. We've got some ideas here. Oh, good. Here's an example of a typical page on Speakout. It's the functional lesson. It's a B1 lesson. It's how-to lessons, they're called now. And this is about giving opinions and reasons for your opinions. Now, in this course book, we do so much on speaking. So they use in the vocabulary, they practice it with speaking, the how-to, they do loads of speaking, they do pronunciation, they have a whole speaking activity. But we want to give Gina more practice in speaking. So if you look at the bottom right-hand corner, we've got something quite special. Speak Anywhere. This is very exciting. This is AI in action. Let's have a little look. The learner goes onto this app. It's like an app, and it's using language from the lesson that she's just done. But she has a conversation, basically, with a voice on the computer. And she has a conversation where she gives her opinions. And then the computer will mark her and tell her how well she's done. And she can redo this time and time again until she becomes much more confident. It's fantastically motivating. It's great fun. And she can do it on her mobile, on her tablet, on her computer. So this is called Speak Anywhere, and there's one in each unit. Very exciting, very exciting. Let's go on here. If another learner happens to need grammar, you can send them off to the online practice. Perhaps their pronunciation is weak. They can go away and do some work on sounds, pronunciation. If they need listening, they can go and watch one of the videos that we've got with the subtitles. This is a fantastic one, which is Would I Lie to You? And the learners have to decide whether a story is true or false. And someone says that he stopped Pele signing his bag. And he tells this story, and everybody has to ask him questions to find out whether it was a true or a false story. Great fun. But the learner can use this at home and can use subtitles if they want to improve their listening. So the point here is that if you have a learner with an uneven or jagged profile, you can send them to work further on the skill that they need to develop further. This is another one for Gina. Pearson have just bought this. It's quite new. I don't know it very well yet myself, but it's an app, and it's like Duolingo in that it's got gamification. It can be used on the mobile phone, and there's a lot of speaking. There's a chatbot there where you can speak. And again, it does the same thing. It backs up what I've just been talking about in the Speak Anywhere. So that's an exciting new thing coming on. So to put this in context, let's go look at this, the Pearson Connected English Learning Program. If we look at Gina, Gina starts with the assessment, the level test, where she finds out she's A2+. She starts taking benchmark tests, Pearson benchmark tests, which she can take again and again to find out how she is doing and build her confidence that she's progressing. In her course, she's using interesting coursework, and she's doing extra work to really develop those skills that are a bit weak in her case. Eventually, she gets up to beyond 43, building her confidence, and then she can take an external exam. Passes it, gets her certificate, off she goes to do her pre-sessional course. And all of these are supported by the Global Scale of English, and I know it very well because when we were writing this edition of Speakout, every single activity in every lesson is linked to one of the Global Scale of English descriptors, so that anybody that's learning this way can be sure that everything is contributing to progress. Okay, so we're nearing the end now, and we've been looking at these questions. What is personalisation? Pros and cons of personalisation for adult learners, and how can we offer each unique individual a relevant and engaging learning experience? We've had practical ideas in lessons and over a course. And the title of it, Everyone Can Shine. I think if you give lots of personalisation, you make people feel accepted, involved, give them a chance to express their views, to respond to things. Everyone can shine. They can be happy in the class and really successful. That's it from me. I want to say thank you. I'm going to say goodbye now, and it was lovely meeting you in the chat room.